Hey guys, Filmsuit here. So, I saw The Dark Knight Rises at the midnight premiere. Before I go in this review, I would like to offer my deepest condolences to the families of the victims of that tragic Colorado shooting. Now, let's go into the review of this movie. So, it opens up 8 years after the events of The Dark Knight, and Bruce Wayne is now a recluse. He doesn't leave his house at all, um, and because of that, Wayne Enterprises is at risk and are on the verge of a financial meltdown because he's not there to give his opinion on certain projects, and one of them which comes into play quite heavily later. And and then there's also a new executive named played by Mary Cotillard, but her name's Miranda Tate, and she tries to get Bruce Wayne to come out of being a recluse and get back in the real world to help save the company. And he comes out, but not necessarily because not necessarily because of Miranda Tate's wishes, but because of something else. Now, before I go in, spoiler alert. So, this is going to be very plot detailed, so if you haven't seen it yet, turn this off now. Alright, so here you go. So, he comes out of hiding because, Selena Kyle, or Catwoman as you know, steals his fingerprints, and he's trying to figure out why she needs his fingerprints. So he comes out of hiding to figure it out, and discovers that she's actually working with a rival named Daggett, who's loosely based on Roland Daggett from the Batman animated series. And not only that, but he's also in cahoots with this very brilliant and disfigured terrorist named Bane, who is actually who actually has a lot more planned than to just work for Daggett. He plans to destroy Gotham and everything that Gordon and Bruce Wayne sacrificed themselves for, and he even has a mysterious feud or a mysterious feud with Bruce Wayne and Batman that you don't find out about until later in the movie. Now, besides all that, there's also a new character named John Blake, who's an idealistic police officer who believes in everything Batman stands for, and he allies himself with Batman and Gordon to help try to fight Bane. Now, let's talk about how great this movie is. This movie, it has some flaws, honestly. Like, everyone's complaining about Bane's voice. To me, I honestly didn't care about the voice, just like I didn't care about Christian Bale's voice in The Dark Knight. Although I will say about that, they cleaned up his voice quite a bit here in The Dark Knight Rises. It sounds a lot smoother, a lot cleaner, and a lot less gravelier. Yeah. Now, for Tom Hardy's voice as Bane, it sounds like Darth Vader mixed with Sean Connery, but it is still, to me, it's great. Other people hated it, including my friend who runs the Fan Couch review site. Now, but yeah, no, those aren't the only flaws necessarily. There are quite a few characters in it, but just the fact that the movie's almost 3 hours long and it's Christopher Nolan, he gives them all something to do. So, yeah, there's a lot of people complaining about too many characters, but that's what you get with an ensemble epic like this. Now, another flaw was that the first half of the movie, like the first maybe hour and 20 minutes or so, is kind of slow paced. Like, Bruce Wayne doesn't actually return as Batman until a good 45 minutes into the movie. But again, it's another flaw that is redeemable because once you get to like the last hour of the movie, that's where it just becomes that's where it just becomes epic on all scales. And yeah, another flaw I guess would be that Joseph Gordon-Levitt, who plays John Blake, even though he did a really good job, he didn't really have enough fight scenes. I feel like it was, I don't like he didn't really. It's funny. In Inception, I feel he didn't really have like a lot to his character, but he had all the action scenes. Here, he has a lot to his character, but not enough action. Kind of, kind of weird. I guess I just want a little bit of both out of him. And now, there are a lot of plot twists. Some that I'm not going to give any away, so don't worry, I'm not going to spoil any of those here. But yeah, there are quite a few plot twists. A lot of them are kind of confusing. A lot of them are very like simple and thrown at you. And but overall, like I feel like they really lead to a very satisfying conclusion because Christopher Nolan knew how to impress his fans and impress the Batman fans with this movie. Now, the movie as a whole, let's get into the good stuff. It is, like I said, it's great. It's on par. I mean, actually, no, take that back. It's not exactly on par with The Dark Knight. Like, The Dark Knight will always be my favorite superhero movie, and, like, number 2 on my top 10 favorite movies of all time. But it is definitely a lot better than Batman Begins, I think, anyway. And it also... Oh, okay, let's go back to the flaws real quick. This movie, it kind of ignores a lot that happened in The Dark Knight. Like, they bring up Harvey Dent quite a bit. They bring up Rachel quite a bit. They do not bring up... the Joker at all. And this is done out of respect for Heath Ledger, but still, like, I feel like if we were in that world, we couldn't just forget about some psychotic clown who blew up a police station or a hospital. This movie does tie in a lot more with Batman Begins than The Dark Knight, to say the least. Now, anyway, back to the good stuff. Yeah, this movie has a very well-paced, well-built plot. It builds up quite a bit, especially, like I said, especially to the last hour. Like I said, I know it's kind of a slow first half, but once you get to the second half of the movie, it's worth it. Like pretty much, this is kind of a spoiler, but after Batman's first fight with Bane, which, by the way, is one of the most terrifyingly disturbing and brutal fight scenes I've seen in any movie in general. Yeah, once that, like, right after that happens, and Bane just begins tearing Gotham apart and blowing up a football stadium, trapping all of Gotham's police underground in the sewer system, and I don't know, among other schemes. The movie, like, it really brilliantly establishes, like, a feeling of lost hope. Like, you feel like that there's not going to be a good conclusion and that no one's going to get saved in the end of this movie, that Gotham is just done for. And Christopher Nolan, he establishes that brilliantly and makes the movie feel very apocalyptic too. Like, that's another thing I loved about the tone of the movie. Like, yes, it's a superhero movie because it's Batman, but it's heavily psychological because of Bruce Wayne and feeling very traumatized and kind of lost about why he was Batman in the first place. And it also is very psychological to the fact that Gordon is kind of guilt-stricken, and Alfred, he's lost hope in helping Bruce Wayne. Like, this is kind of again, spoiler. I'm surprised you're still here if I'm surprised you're still here at this point, but yeah, basically Alfred leaves like right before right before Bruce Wayne becomes Batman again, to because he just doesn't want to risk losing Bruce Wayne, and doesn't want to see him die. So yeah, like you don't see him again until like the last 10 minutes of the movie, and yeah, and so it's very psychological because Alfred just can't stand watching Bruce torture himself anymore, and it's also a bit of a noir movie too because of Catwoman's character, who's brilliantly played by Anne Hathaway. She was absolutely perfect. Even the people who underestimated her love her in this movie. So yeah, there's that. It's very noir because of her, and also kind of because of Marion Cotillard's character, Miranda Tate, and yeah, it's Nolan kind of does what the James Bond movies did, having two love interests, and not sure to root for which one until you know for sure in the last 45 minutes of the movie. Now, anyway, yeah, the tone was perfectly well established, and the visuals in this movie were incredible. There were some aerial shots that blew me away, like in Batman Begins and The Dark Knight, as well as a couple of other, and just as well as a couple other shots, like the way the fight scenes were filmed, like the scene where Batman infiltrates the sewer system, and like he's hiding in the dark, and all these guys just start firing their rifles right into the darkness, and you see Batman approaching closer and closer through the flashes of gunfire. That was brilliant right there. And when Batman first returns on his motorcycle and has a big motorcycle chase with Bane and his men, that was very well shot. Yeah, this movie, like the visuals were amazing. And the movie's also really good commentary. Like a lot of people are saying that this is a commentary on terrorism and global meltdown, and you know, it is. There are, like, Christopher Nolan denies it, but like people are interpreting it, and just like myself, that the movie has a lot of commentary on issues such as terrorism. Like in one review, a critic said that some of Bane's plots reminded him of 9/11, and honestly, yeah, there were some plots that were kind of like 9/11. It's also a bit of a metaphor on World War II, just by how Bane confides all the rich people into their own rundown building and leaves all of the poor people to overroam their homes. It kind of reminded me of like a weird mixture of Hitler and Robin Hood. Like Robin Hood because like he robs the rich, gives to the poor, but also Hitler just because Bane was killing rich people the whole time, and he was still like Hitler because he, like, even though he acted like that he was siding with the poor, he still was out to just destroy everything in Gotham. Yeah, and let's see here. And another thing, ending, very satisfying. It was a little predictable, like they kind of foreshadowed it at one point, and I rolled my eyes, thought, oh great, I know how it's gonna end, but there was a lot more to it that made it much more satisfying and made that one little prediction redeemable. So yes, this movie is definitely worth watching. It is worth seeing a second time. I plan on seeing it a second time here pretty soon. And yeah, my gosh, this was a great movie. It's probably the best movie I've seen so far this year, and definitely the best of the summer. And yeah, like I said, not as good as The Dark Knight, but it is definitely better than Batman Begins. I'm the Filmsuit, And tune in next time for... what am I reviewing next time? I think I'm reviewing The Watch next time. Unless you guys suggest otherwise. Yeah, go see The Dark Knight Rises.